I used to believe that marriages didn't end with explosions, they ended with small silences, with half-finished sentences and glances that lasted a second too long, or not long enough. Looking back, I can't point to a single moment when I lost my wife, only 1,000 little ones where I didn't notice she was already leaving. Her name is Lena. We met when we were 27, both of us trying to figure out what settled was supposed to look like. I worked in marketing. She was a freelance interior designer with a habit of collecting coffee mugs from every city we visited. Our apartment looked like a museum of everywhere we'd ever been. Each mug told a story, though after a while, even the stories felt rehearsed. When you've been married 10 years, routine becomes a kind of love language. You learn the sound of the other person's footsteps, the rhythm of their sighs. You measure your life by their habits. So when something changes, when a small silence appears where a laugh used to be, it feels like background noise at first. You tell yourself it's stress or work or time. You don't want to believe it's something else. It started with her phone. Not in the dramatic movie-type way, no hidden text lighting up in the dark, just hesitation. She started taking her phone with her everywhere. To the bathroom, to the kitchen, even when she went to fold laundry. Once, she laughed at something, and when I asked what it was, she said, "Just work stuff." I remember nodding, pretending not to care, and thinking, since when is work that funny? I didn't ask again. That was my first mistake. We used to eat dinner together every night. Even when she was busy, she'd at least sit with me while I ate. But by last spring, she started working late more often, or at least that's what she said. I'd make 2 plates anyway. I'd eat mine in silence and cover hers with foil, though she rarely came home hungry anymore. One night, after her late meeting, she came in smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. It was subtle, not the kind of scent you could accuse someone over. But I noticed. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, "You're quiet tonight." I almost told her then that I could feel her slipping away, that the air between us had changed. But I was a coward in the small ways that matter most. Instead, I said, "Just tired." She smiled, touched my arm, and said, "Don't stay up too late." And then she went to take a shower. The kind of long shower where you come out smelling like guilt and hotel soap. The truth arrived slowly. It wasn't one revelation, it was erosion. Small pieces of my certainty falling away until all that was left was suspicion. There was Ethan, a name she mentioned once or twice, a new client who wanted a full redesign of his downtown loft. She talked about his taste in art, how refreshing it was to work with someone who understood color palettes. I remember saying, "Sounds like you like him," trying to sound playful. She smiled, a little too long. "He's just a client, Alex." But something in her eyes said otherwise. Still, I convinced myself I was imagining it. I didn't want to be that husband, the jealous, paranoid one. So I pushed it down. I told myself that love means trust, and trust means not asking questions you might not like the answers to. I held on to that lie longer than I should have. The night I found out, it wasn't because I went looking. It was because she stopped caring enough to hide it. She left her laptop open on the counter while she was getting ready for bed. I wasn't snooping, I swear, but when I went to plug in my phone, the screen lit up. A message preview from Ethan. "Can't stop thinking about last night. You left your scarf in my car again." I stared at it until the words blurred. I think part of me expected the message to vanish, like maybe I'd misread it, or it was a joke, or a wrong number. But it didn't. It just sat there, glowing on the screen, waiting for me to accept it. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there, feeling my pulse in my throat. When she came out of the bathroom, towel in her hair, humming like she hadn't just detonated our life. I remember saying quietly, "Who's Ethan?" She froze. That's the moment I'll never forget. The way her shoulders stiffened, the way her mouth opened but no words came out. "Alex," she started, and that was enough. The way she said my name, like she already knew the script of the fight that was coming. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I just said, "You should tell me the truth once. Just once." She sat on the edge of the bed, silent for a long time. Then she said, "I didn't mean for it to happen." That's the line they all say, but it didn't soften anything. I didn't mean for it to happen. The words sat between us like a glass of water no one wanted to touch. I heard the shower dripping in the bathroom. Somewhere in the street, a motorcycle coughed and faded away. The world kept going. It always does. "How long?" I asked. "A few months," she said. "Since March." It was June. I counted on my fingers like a child. March, April, May, and now. 4 months. I tried to picture my life during those months. The nights I reheated her dinner. The office happy hours I left early because I wanted to get home to her. The day I surprised her with the ceramic planter she had been eyeing online. I remembered how she smiled and kissed me and said I was sweet. I wondered if she texted him later. "What does he do you?" I asked. She stared at the floor. "He listened," she said softly. "He made me feel like I was someone new. Not just someone who knew where the vacuum bags were and which of our friends hated cilantro. It felt like waking up." I wanted to say I had been listening for 10 years, that I knew every slope and edge of her life, that I learned the difference between her 3 kinds of laughter, that I was there when her father died and she collapsed in the kitchen and I held her on the linoleum while the kettle screamed. I wanted to say love is not a newness, it is a long practice. I wanted to hurt her. I wanted to go back in time. Instead, I asked, "Did you sleep with him?" She closed her eyes. The answer was a quiet yes. I went to the sink and turned on the tap and let water run over my hands. I did not know what to do. Crying felt like a performance I was not ready for. Rage felt like a staircase I would fall down and never stop falling, so I breathed. I watched the water turn hot and steam rise. I thought of all the mugs in our cupboard, Denver, Montreal, Kyoto. I remembered the morning in Kyoto when we woke before sunrise and walked along the river. She wore a red scarf and a gray coat and held my arm with both hands. She said we were lucky. I believed her. Behind me, she said, "I am sorry." "Are you in love with him?" I asked, still looking at the sink. "I do not know," she said. It felt like falling. Maybe that is love. I shut off the water. "Falling is not the same as love," I said. "Falling is gravity." We slept in the same bed that night. We did not touch. I lay on my back and listened to her breathing and tried to memorize it, as if it would be evidence later that this was real, that this was the day my life forked into 2 paths. In the morning, I got up before her, made coffee, and sat at the table with my hands around the mug until the heat bled away. When she woke, her face was puffy. She made toast and could not eat it. We circled the kitchen like people who used to live there. Finally, I said, "We need to talk about what happens now." She nodded. "I will end it," she said. "I already texted him last night. I told him it was wrong." "And us," I said. She rubbed her eyes. "I do not know," she said. "I want to try. If you want to try. Try." The word felt small, like a bandage for a broken arm. But I said yes, not because I was sure, but because I needed a bridge between yesterday and whatever came next. We agreed to see a therapist. We agreed on honesty. We agreed to avoid blame. We were already lying to ourselves. The first session was a Tuesday afternoon in a room that smelled like eucalyptus. The therapist, a middle-aged woman with gentle posture and sharp eyes, asked us to start with how we met. A trick, probably, to remind us we had been a story once. We talked about the street festival where we shared a plate of dumplings and laughed at a dog wearing sunglasses. We talked about the first apartment with the squeaky radiator. We talked about the time we missed our flight and spent the day in an airport bar reading trivia questions to each other and making up fake biographies for everyone who walked past. I watched Lena as she remembered these things and felt the ache of it. Grief is often just love with nowhere to go. Then the therapist said, "Now tell me about the affair." I spoke first because I needed to hold the wheel of my own life. I said I felt blindsided. I said I also felt foolish because I had noticed signs and ignored them. I said I loved my wife and did not know what to do with that love now that it did not fit where it had always fit. The therapist nodded. She asked where in my body I felt the hurt. It was a strange question, but I answered. My throat, my chest, the backs of my knees. She said to breathe into those places. It sounded like a cliché, but when I tried it, it made me cry. Quietly. I had not cried yet. I looked down and let the tears mark my jeans. When it was her turn, Lena said she had felt unseen. She said she had felt like we were roommates who kept the same calendar. She said she had been tired of being good. She said she was ashamed. She did not try to excuse it. She did not call it a mistake. She called it a choice. I respected that even while it hurt. We went to therapy for 3 weeks. In that time, she did not see him, or at least that is what she said. And I chose to believe her because disbelief is a corrosive thing, and I needed something solid to stand on. We talked about our patterns, how I avoided conflict by being easygoing, how she avoided intimacy by staying busy, how we were both responsible for the slow leak of our marriage. None of that made the affair feel smaller. It only made the terrain around it more understandable. At the end of the 3rd session, the therapist asked us to spend a weekend apart, not as a punishment, but as a pause. Space can make the truth less blurry, she said. I packed a bag and stayed at my friend Marco's place. He has a 1-bedroom with a couch that folds out and a plant he keeps forgetting to water. Marco and I met in college. We have the kind of friendship where years can pass, and then one conversation fills the gap. He listened without judgment. He got takeout. He showed me a video of his niece trying to eat a lemon. He did not give advice, which was a gift. The first night away, I slept hard. No ceiling cracks I recognized, no shampoo smell in the bathroom. I woke up and felt empty, but it was a clean emptiness, like a room after you move the furniture out. I walked to the park and sat on a bench and watched a group of kids kick a soccer ball. A father shouted encouragement in a voice like a trumpet. A dog chased a stick and did not care who threw it. I realized I had been holding my breath for months. On Sunday afternoon, I texted Lena. "How are you?" She replied, "Numb, you." "Better than I expected," I typed. Then I deleted it. I sent, "Thinking." We met that evening at our apartment. We stood in the kitchen like people meeting to exchange hostages. She looked tired. I felt steady in a way that scared me. "I made a list," she said, and handed me a piece of paper. It was a list of the things she wanted to work on if we stayed together. More time together without phones, weekly check-ins, a vacation just the 2 of us. She wanted to delete the photos with him. She wanted me to ask more questions. The list was practical, sincere, and also, to me, beside the point. "I appreciate this," I said. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. "But I think I know what I need." She waited. Her mouth trembled. She had always been easy to read when she was nervous. "I need to end our marriage," I said. My voice was calm. "I love you." I do not think I can build something honest on top of what has happened. I have tried to imagine it. I keep arriving at the same place. I would become a detective in my own house. You would become a defendant. We would call it healing. It would be surveillance." She closed her eyes and nodded. When she opened them, there was a kind of relief there, which surprised me and also did not. "I was afraid you would say that," she said, "and I think you are right." We sat down on the floor because the chairs felt formal. We called it. We began to talk logistics. It was a strange tenderness, like changing a bandage together. We listed the tasks, the lease, the savings account, the couch we both hated but had kept out of habit, the mugs. We agreed to split them. She wanted Montreal. I wanted Kyoto. It felt like divorce bingo. As we talked, I kept waiting for the storm, the shouting, the thrown plates, the insults that cut years later. None of it arrived. We had loved each other for a long time. Even here, at the end, we could not bring ourselves to be cruel. I slept in the guest room that night. In the morning, I sent an email to HR asking about the Employee Assistance Program because I had seen a poster in the bathroom about free counseling. I canceled our dinner with friends on Thursday. I told Marco I would be moving in for a bit. I looked at apartments online. There were so many. It felt indecent. The world had more rooms than people to fill them. We decided to tell our parents the following weekend. My mother cried softly and said marriage was hard, and was I sure? I said I was. She said she would make soup, her version of triage. Her second question was, "Do you hate her?" I said no, which surprised me a little. She said she was proud of me for that. I do not know if pride was the right word, but I understood what she meant. Lena's mother sent me a long text. She said she was sorry. She said she did not raise her daughter to hurt people. She said I was a good man. I appreciated the intention even if I did not recognize myself in the compliment. Good felt like a jacket that did not fit. We told a few close friends. People made faces like you make when you hear about an accident you cannot fix. They offered beers and spare rooms and the names of lawyers. A few told me their own secret stories, affairs that had happened to them, affairs they had done. The world tilted. The private became visible. I understood for the first time how common it is to break a promise and keep breathing. The week after the decision, I moved out. I took my clothes, my tools, the box of cables I had been meaning to organize for 5 years, the framed photo from our Kyoto trip, and the cast iron pan I had seasoned into submission. We hugged by the door. It was not a romantic hug or a sibling hug. It was a human hug. We had been each other's person. That does not evaporate in a month. "I'm sorry," she said again. "I know," I said. "I am too." In Marco's apartment, I unpacked slowly. I made a little corner for myself on the fold-out couch, a lamp, a book, a bowl for my keys. I cooked dinner and ate standing up. I took a long shower and leaned my head against the tile and let hot water drum my neck. I slept, and when I woke, something was different. I did not feel better, not yet, but I felt possible. On Saturday, I went back to get the rest of my things. Lena had boxed them neatly and labeled each one. Kitchen, books, misc. We joked about how misc is where relationships go to die. The humor helped us move the boxes to the car. In the hallway, we bumped into our neighbors, a young couple who had just moved in and were still learning the laundry schedule. They asked if we were moving. We said yes. They asked where. We both answered, and our answers did not match. They nodded and said good luck. After they left, we laughed in a small way. Our last inside joke. Before I left, I walked through the rooms one more time. The dent in the bedroom door from when we tried to move the dresser and misjudged the angle. The scuff on the baseboard where our robot vacuum had gotten stuck on its first day and Lena filmed it like it was a pet. The patch of sun on the living room rug where we used to sit on Saturdays and drink coffee and read. I said goodbye to the life I had known. We filed the paperwork the next week. No children, no real estate, no long court battles. A marriage cleanly dismantled by signatures and fees. I got an email confirmation from the county. It was as cold as you would expect. I stared at it for a long time, then archived it. The digital equivalent of a drawer. That night I texted Lena. "Thank you for today." She replied, "Thank you for being kind." Kind. It felt too generous and also fair. We had chosen not to wreck each other on the way out. That was something. I went to bed and dreamed of a house with no walls, only doors that opened to more doors. In the morning, I made a list. Find a therapist for myself, join a gym, buy new sheets, call my sister back, try a new recipe, walk every day. The list was not a cure, it was a direction. Outside, summer kept going. The air smelled like cut grass and hot sidewalks. I put on my shoes and stepped into the day. The weeks after I moved out passed like fog. Everything was muted, sounds, colors, appetite. The city kept moving, and I moved with it, but I felt slightly out of sync, like I was walking through a movie where the audio didn't match the picture. At Marco's place, I tried to live quietly. I went to work, answered emails, joined meetings. I smiled when I had to. I discovered how exhausting pretending could be. People said things like, "How are you holding up?" And I always answered, "I'm okay." It was easier than explaining that I was both okay and not okay at the same time. At night, when Marco was out, I'd sit on the couch and stare at my phone. Not because I wanted to call her, I didn't, but because silence after years of constant companionship feels unnatural. It's like quitting caffeine. You don't realize how dependent you were until your body protests the absence. About a month in, I started running again. I hadn't done that since my 20s. The first morning, I only made it 6 blocks before my lungs gave up, but the cold air and sweat made me feel awake in a way I hadn't in months. I kept at it. Every day a little farther. Every run ended with a strange mix of grief and satisfaction, like I was outrunning a version of myself. Marco noticed the change. "You're starting to look like a person again," he said one night, flipping through channels. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd managed in weeks. We went out for drinks on a Friday. Halfway through my second beer, Marco asked if I thought about dating again. I said no. Then I said maybe. The truth was, I didn't know what I thought. The idea of letting someone new into the mess felt absurd, but the idea of being alone forever felt worse. He said, "You don't have to fix it. You just have to live through it." It was good advice. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I saw her again. It wasn't planned. I was at the grocery store, standing in front of the pasta aisle debating between brands, when I heard her voice. I turned, and there she was, Lena, holding a basket, her hair shorter, her expression calm but surprised. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she smiled a small, cautious smile. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I replied. We stood there surrounded by shelves of tomato sauce, both pretending this was normal. She looked good, not glamorous, just lighter. I realized I hadn't seen that version of her in years. "How have you been?" she asked. "Okay," I said. "You?" She nodded. "Working? Still freelancing? I moved to a new place near the river." I told her I was still with Marco, but planning to get my own apartment. We talked for another few minutes, polite, distant, but not cold. Then she said, "I'm glad you're doing okay." I wanted to say something profound, something to mark the strange civility of the moment. But all that came out was, "Yeah, you too." We said goodbye. I watched her walk away, her basket swinging lightly. That was the last time I saw her in person. After that, life began to settle into new shapes. I found a one-bedroom apartment with big windows and a noisy radiator. The first night there, I ate takeout on the floor and listened to the hum of the city outside. It didn't feel like home yet, but it felt like possibility. I filled the shelves slowly, books, plants, a few framed photos that weren't from my marriage. I bought a new set of mugs, plain white this time. No memories attached. Work improved, strangely. I had been distracted for so long that the focus felt new again. I started getting noticed for projects I had quietly cared about for years. My boss said I seemed grounded. I almost laughed at the irony. Sometimes, though, at night, I'd dream of her. Not the betrayal part, just small moments. Her humming while cooking, her handwriting on sticky notes. The way she used to dance in the kitchen when a song she liked came on. I'd wake up both comforted and hollow. Healing isn't linear. It's a spiral. You pass the same points again, but a little farther out each time. One morning in early winter, an envelope arrived at my office. No return address, just my name in familiar handwriting. My chest tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a single page. Alex, I wanted to thank you for how you handled everything. I know I hurt you deeply, and you still treated me with grace. I've thought about that a lot. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I broke something I loved. There's no good reason, only patterns I didn't face in time. I'm not writing to reopen anything. I just wanted you to know that I see what you gave me. Patience, kindness, and the freedom to walk away without hatred. I hope you're finding peace. You deserve it. Lena. I read it twice. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. Mostly, I felt quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm, when everything is still standing but rearranged. I folded the letter and put it in my drawer. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say, and that was okay. By spring, I realized something unexpected. I was happy. Not the loud, movie kind of happy, just a steady sense that the days were beginning to add up to something again. I started taking weekend trips, hiking, photography, places I used to say we'd go someday. One Saturday, while shooting photos of an old bridge, a woman approached me to ask about my camera settings. Her name was Claire. She had an easy laugh and a habit of tucking her hair behind her ear when she talked. We spent an hour walking and talking, then got coffee. It wasn't a love at first sight moment. It was quieter than that, the beginning of comfort. We started meeting up now and then, no pressure, no declarations, just two people sharing space without ghosts. I told her about my marriage one night briefly. She didn't pry. She said, "It's good you can still talk about it without anger." And I realized she was right. One evening, months later, I went for a run along the river. The sunset hit the water in bands of gold and pink. Couples walked past, some holding hands, some arguing softly. I thought of Lena, where she might be, who she might be with, whether she still designed spaces that made people feel at home. For the first time, I didn't feel pain thinking about her, just gratitude. We'd loved each other once, then lost each other, and somehow survived it. As I jogged home, I thought about how love isn't always meant to last. Sometimes it's meant to teach. Ours had taught me to pay attention, to listen, to let go with dignity. When I got home, I made dinner, turned on some music, and ate by the window. The air smelled like rain. I looked around my small apartment and realized I was okay. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. And that was enough.